McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Season 2, Episode 22. The Burden of a Living Soul. October 10th, 1921. Continued. After that. After I chose to leave the night enthusiasts locked in their train cars, everything happened very quickly. I returned to the secret entrance. I had just shut the door when Wrath returned. He was alone. He looked furious. He strode towards the gazebo, fuming, and he picked up a train car. He flung it across the room. It cracked, rolled, and rattled, but it didn't split in half. Wrath went over and picked it up. He shouted at the little wooden man inside. Then he slumped suddenly, and he carried the train car back to sit with the others. He sat down and buried his head in his hands. I watched him for a moment. Suddenly he looked up and grinned, and he pushed a train car over with his finger, like a little boy. I turned away. For the first time, I really faced Noble, who had been watching me the entire time. "What happened?" he said. "Did you run out of time?" "No," I said. "What do you mean, no?" "I left them there," I said. I started to cry, and I didn't entirely know why. "After all that," Noble said, "you changed your mind." "I think they deserve it," I said. "I should be angry," Noble said, "but I'm not. Not really. I think I'll be angry when I wake up." I glared at him. "Oh, shut up." Noble glared right back. Then, together, we left the secret passage. As soon as I was up inside the shed, I teleported. I didn't know where Noble was going, and I didn't care. He wanted everyone to think he was dead. Well, he could go hide out and have done with it. I teleported to McGillicuddy and Murder's, and I found the rusty nail that led to the secret basement. I teleported through it into the Death to All Mice room, and then I hurried down the trap door. No one else was back yet. Of the few magic unusuals who had stayed behind, most were off doing something, nowhere in sight. I ran into one girl. She looked at me, hopeful. I didn't say a word, and stormed towards my bedroom. I felt like an 8-year-old having a temper tantrum. My whole soul was itchy, and it was making me furious. I shut and locked my door, and even considered removing my nameplate so no one could find me. I cried and hissed into my pillow, overwhelmed by a guilt I couldn't understand. Finally, I grew tired. I'd been awake for a very long time, and I wanted rest. I took off my shoes and curled up on the bed. I buried myself in a blanket, so I could hide from the world. Then I fell asleep. When I woke up, I didn't feel any better. 24 hours was a very long time to wait for your soul to return. I tiptoed up to my door and listened. No one was outside. No one was hammering on my door, demanding that I leave, because I'd just betrayed humanity and all its best ideals. By now they knew, but they left me alone. So I left them alone. I spent the day brooding. I thought about writing to you, diary, but I didn't want to. I went to bed again, and by the time I woke up, my soul was back. I threw up, and then I cried, and then I sat down and wrote to you. It is so brutal to feel again, to care again. I cried for the night enthusiasts who I left imprisoned, but I mostly cried for me, because getting my whole heart back has been like getting hit with 1,000 bricks. But I'm still so glad it's here. I've been writing for so long, I think my muscles have turned into rubber. I'm going to wax eloquently about how I feel, about all of this, about myself, but I'm tired. I want to be finished for now. October 11th, 1921. Time to wax eloquently, diary. Things have changed. When I first woke up, I was horrified. I felt like I'd committed a murder, and essentially I had. Not just a murder, but several grisly, indescribably cruel ones. I thought my soul was going to rip in half. I ignored the feeling as long as I wrote to you about everything that had happened, but then it had to come out, and I had to feel it. I understood the night enthusiasts, more than I ever had. I had committed an atrocity while under the influence of a ruined soul. I no longer hated the night enthusiasts. I no longer feared them. I had been them, and that made all the difference. For a moment, that had been me. That, I think, is the real nightmare of committing a murder. Suddenly realizing who you are, what you're capable of. But there is a key difference between a murderer and me. For a murderer, it's too late. They can never wash the blood off their hands. I still had a chance. I left my bedroom and went quietly down to the living room. A few of the magic unusuals gave me sad smiles in the hallway. That's when I realized they didn't know. They thought I'd failed, that the mission had simply gone badly. They had no idea I'd ruined things on purpose. I found Mr. McGillicuddy. He was seated in the living room, wearing spectacles, scribbling in a notebook. He looked up. "Maud," he said. "I left them there," I said. "I'm sorry?" "I left them," I said. "It's a long story. But I'm going to go back and set things right." "I'm working on another tactic," Mr. McGillicuddy said, "but it may not work, and it will be several days before we can execute it." I nodded. "If you'll excuse me, I'm going to go for a walk." Mr. McGillicuddy nodded to me, perplexed, and I left the pawn shop. I returned to 1921. Not knowing where else to look for Noble James, I returned to the crypt where I'd found him. I was in luck. He was right there, eating an apple and sitting on the floor. When I arrived, he scrambled up. He stepped right up to me and hugged me, which I wasn't expecting. I hugged him around the neck for a moment. "I was hoping you'd show up," he said. "Are you all right?" "Oh, I feel like I woke up to find my soul nothing but lumps and bruises." "I'm so sorry," he said. "I should have warned you. I should have been clearer about how awful it is, about how awful it feels when it comes back." "Awful but good," I said. Noble nodded. "It's my fault. Completely and entirely. I wasn't thinking straight. Of course you chose to leave them in there when you had a fractured soul. It was a stupid idea on my part." "Noble, I could have pulled through," I said. "And anyway, I made the decision to remove my soul just as much as you." "I just wish we hadn't failed," Noble said. "Oh no," I said. "We haven't failed yet. Last time was the safe way, the way that left me alive. This way might leave me alive too, but it also might not. I've let those night enthusiasts rot in train cars long enough. I'm going back into the night enthusiast cave right now, and even if Wrath shoots me, I'm going to release them." "Does Mr. McGillicuddy know you're doing this?" Noble said. "Oh, he has no idea," I said. "You're going now?" Noble said. "Right now." "And you have a plan?" Noble said. "No plan," I said. "Just doing what I know I need to do." I was not going to rust and die in what I had done. I was going to undo it. We hope you've enjoyed Season 2, Episode 22, The Burden of a Living Soul, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren. All rights reserved. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider taking a moment to share it with your friends. A social media share, Facebook tag, or in-person recommendation do more to market this audio drama than anything Minerva Sweeney Wren can do on her own. She relies on you. Visit minervasweeneywren.com to share the story with other people in need of an adventure. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue with Season 2, Episode 23. Wrath. Confronted.